The X marks the spot.
Is there treasure underneath?
Good morning, everyone. Bonjour à tous. I'd like to welcome my colleagues, Don Iveson, who is the Mayor of Edmonton, who is the Chair of the Big City Mayors Caucus, et la mairesse de la Ville de Montréal, Valérie Plante. Bienvenue. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we're on the unceded territory of the Algonquin people who have lived on these ancestral lands for millennia. We do really value our relationship with our surrounding Algonquin communities, Pikwakanagan and Kitigan-Zibi, as well as all First Nation, Métis, and Inuit residents of Ottawa. It's really a pleasure for me as Mayor of the City of Ottawa to host the Big City Mayors Caucus today. This caucus is one of the country's strongest voices for progress, not just for Canada's biggest cities, but for all municipalities in our country. Our federal-provincial partnership has driven historic progress, unprecedented investments in infrastructure, transit, and housing. Le prochain budget fédéral sera déterminant. C'est à cette occasion que le nouveau gouvernement voudrait montrer qu'il est prêt à obtenir des résultats pour les Canadiens. Earlier this morning, we met with Minister Hussein, and later today we'll meet with Minister McKenna and Minister Morneau. All three of these ministers are key architects for the creation of the federal budget, and we thank them in advance for taking the time to meet with us. We also, as you know, had a very healthy discussion with Prime Minister Trudeau and the Deputy Prime Minister Freeland, where we spoke to those two leaders on many key issues, including transit, infrastructure, and affordable housing. And today's conversations center on one question: how do we work together and continue to work together to build on our progress to get more done for Canadian citizens? I'll now turn it over to our chair, Don Iveson, and then Valérie will offer comments en français. Merci. Thank you.
Well, merci Jim, et merci à la mairesse Plante. It's great to be here and gather with our colleagues from across the country who do the work every day of building prosperity, solving economic challenges, including all Canadians, at least who live in our cities. But we work closely with local governments of all shapes and sizes, urban and rural, through FCM, and this caucus is just part of that larger movement of people who are delivering every day on the ground. And we're most effective when we have the support of all orders of government and the alignment of all orders of government and the respect of all orders of government. And certainly it's clear from the continuing dialogue we've had now for 5 years with this government that there is not just a willingness to partner, but a sincere and underlying respect for the value of our local democracies and the work that our governments do on the ground every day for Canadians. And so the federal and municipal partnership has already achieved so much in the area of expansion of our transit systems, the hardening of our infrastructure against a changing climate, the delivery of more affordable housing, and so we discussed how we want to move further and faster in these areas of shared priority. And the mayors are united. We come from across different political perspectives, from different professional backgrounds, and yet there is incredible unity around our table from all parts of the country that aligns very well with the government's priorities and the messages that Canadians sent to this minority parliament about where their priorities lie. And in particular, as MPs come back and have the opportunity to work with the government on the first budget, our priorities are again very well aligned, particularly around climate change, which really crosses over so many of the different areas that are priorities we've discussed with the Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister and Prime Minister, as well as with ministers we'll be meeting with this afternoon. And those priorities include, obviously, continuing to deliver on transit, fulfilling the permanent transit commitment from the platform so we have long-term certainty, and so we can turn together and ask provinces, are you willing also to come into long-term commitments? Because the federal and local governments can only achieve so much without the partnership and consistent buy-in of provincial governments. And so permanent transit is a very important commitment that will allow us to turn back to provinces and say, are we all united in this? Some provinces are, and exceptional results are being delivered that will drive environmental and economic performance for Canadians, and some provinces, quite frankly, are not there. But permanent transit moves this conversation forward and gives confidence to our construction industry and to commuters that their lives are going to get better. One other area where we see tremendous opportunity around dealing with our emissions reduction goals and supporting the efficient operations of services in municipalities is zero-emission fleets, the more rapid adoption to help us meet our Paris targets of zero-emission vehicles, whether they're electric or hydrogen or alternate technologies. We want to get to that goal of lower emissions and ultimately no emissions in our communities associated with public transit. And we see a strong role for the federal government, appreciate their interest in working with us on this. We want to accelerate even the level of ambition beyond what's previously been discussed in order to help achieve those greenhouse gas emission reduction goals and support better transit. We also see a strong priority and continued work about helping to harden communities of all sizes in this country, rural and urban, against climate extremes and changing weather. And so the oversubscribed Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund needs additional resources, and more emphasis needs to be put on intergovernmental partnership with respect to dealing with disaster mitigation and adaptation priorities, which municipalities have been planning for years. We now need investment to deal with those climate extremes. And the climate budget would be a great time to give that confidence again to our communities and reduce risk and reduce insurance premiums. There's a strong offset and good policy here. And finally, even with respect to the housing market, we see tremendous opportunities to help support both the retention of the existing affordable rental housing stock, as well as improve our environmental performance by investing in energy retrofits to help support aging rental stock staying affordable and being recapitalized. So we see even a climate opportunity around affordable rental housing in communities across this country. And so we believe that this package of requests to the federal government in this climate budget will help achieve our collective environmental goals and make lives better for Canadians and leverage the implementation capacity of local governments who continue to deliver for Canadians every single day in our country. So thank you very much, and I'd like to turn it over to Mayor Plante to offer some comments as well.
Merci beaucoup. Jim, Don, c'est un plaisir d'être avec vous aujourd'hui. On le répète souvent à quel point les villes, et en fait nous les maires et les mairesses des grandes villes, mais aussi de toutes les municipalités, peu importe leur taille, on rappelle à quel point nous sommes sur le terrain et qu'on est très créatifs et on cherche toujours des solutions. Mais ce qui est agréable et ce qui est important pour nous, c'est d'entendre également cette reconnaissance-là du gouvernement de proximité à d'autres paliers gouvernementaux. Et c'est ce qu'on trouve ici lorsque l'ensemble, ou du moins le premier ministre ainsi que certains ministres décident de venir discuter avec le caucus des maires des grandes villes canadiennes. Et cette reconnaissance-là est d'autant plus fondamentale que les sujets avec lesquels on doit jongler ont un impact direct sur la vie des citoyens et citoyennes, et c'est de ça dont on a souhaité parler aujourd'hui en lien avec le prochain budget fédéral, c'est-à-dire de tout ce qui touche à l'adaptation au changement climatique, le transport ainsi que l'habitation. Et il y a un lien qui unit ces trois grands sujets-là. Tout d'abord, quand on parle de transition écologique, le transport s'impose. Toute la question de mobilité, comment est-ce qu'on réfléchit nos villes, comment est-ce qu'on pense notre territoire, comment est-ce qu'on souhaite diminuer l'utilisation de la voiture solo et d'offrir des options structurantes à nos citoyens et citoyennes pour désengorger les routes. Et justement, de s'attaquer à l'élément le plus porteur quand il est question de réduire les gaz à effet de serre, et je parle du transport. Alors, bien sûr, c'est une demande qui fait partie de ce budget, les demandes des grandes villes, à savoir des investissements majeurs, continuer d'investir de façon massive dans le transport collectif, dans les projets de transport structurants. Il y a la question de l'électrification aussi qui est très, très importante pour les flottes d'autobus existantes, mais également à venir. L'autre élément, c'est la lutte au changement climatique, ou comment est-ce qu'on rend notre territoire plus résilient. On le sait, lorsqu'un événement lié au changement climatique frappe nos municipalités, nos villes, on doit trouver des solutions rapides maintenant pour les loger, pour les nourrir, pour gérer également toute l'angoisse et le stress que cela crée. Et on a définitivement besoin des paliers supérieurs pour donner un coup de main aux municipalités qui n'arrivent pas à faire tout ça, ou du moins qui réussissent à le faire, mais souvent avec les moyens du bord, en grattant les fonds de tiroir. Et on doit plus à nos citoyens et citoyennes. On veut s'assurer qu'ils se sentent en sécurité et qu'ils se sentent soutenus par les villes et les gouvernements supérieurs. Enfin, le dernier élément, mais non le moindre, celui de l'habitation. Je le disais tout à l'heure, la transition écologique, si on veut la réussir, il ne faut pas laisser personne derrière. Et ça implique avoir un toit au-dessus de sa tête. Alors, on doit travailler à s'assurer que l'offre de logement, elle est adaptée aux besoins, que ce soit des communautés plus vulnérables comme les communautés autochtones, les personnes aînées à faible revenu, et il y a beaucoup d'autres besoins dans ce sens-là, mais ne serait-ce que de soutenir même la classe moyenne qui a de la difficulté à se loger. Alors, les villes ont des idées, on en a des solutions, mais on a besoin d'avoir le soutien, je dirais, moral, mais surtout le soutien financier pour pouvoir réussir ce grand défi qui est existant. On sait que le taux d'inoccupation est de plus en plus élevé dans toutes les grandes villes canadiennes et on doit pouvoir réussir on doit réussir à loger toutes nos populations. Alors aujourd'hui, l'ensemble des maires du caucus des maires des grandes villes canadiennes étaient donc réunis pour discuter de ces enjeux-là, se familiariser avec nos particularités, mais il se révèle de nos rencontres un front commun, une compréhension globale des enjeux que nous partageons tous et toutes, et nous souhaitons que le gouvernement fédéral continue d'entendre nos demandes pour nous soutenir dans notre travail quotidien. Merci.
Nous sommes unis. Yes. Des questions? Hey, Bill.
You've had a couple meetings with the Prime Minister this week. What is your read of the government's appetite for some of these demands heading into the budget? Is it do they just want to stick with their platform commitments, or are they interested in some of the other things that we've been talking about? Yes, Dan's been talking about increasing the scope of the gas tax.
So I think we've prioritized asks that align with the climate imperative. Many of our communities have declared climate emergencies. We've heard from young people in our communities and from business leaders who are concerned about risks and see opportunities to do the right thing, to harden our communities against severe weather, to reduce our emissions, and to improve productivity through investments in public transit. So there's a broad support for those priorities. And they align with the platform commitments, and they reduce risk for Canadians, and they've been long-standing priorities for local governments. So I think we're still very interested in a conversation about modernizing the gas tax mechanism to provide direct and unconditional infrastructure investment in cities. But for this budget, we really thought it was important to prioritize climate issues related to housing, climate issues related to public transit and zero-emission vehicles, and climate issues related to hardening our communities against severe weather. So we'll maintain the conversation about other mechanisms, and all those mechanisms are critically important because much of this hinges, ideally, on all three orders of government working together. And as I said earlier, where that's happening, we get leverage from beneficiaries and contributors at the local, provincial, and federal level. And where that's not happening, mechanisms like the gas tax become all that more important. So I think we're still hopeful that now that some of the rhetoric and partisanship around the election has dialed down, and that Canadians have said very clearly they want all their governments to get back to work and deliver results, that we can, in these priority areas, get that done. And but at the meantime, you know, we do need to have conversations about those direct mechanisms to work through, particularly in those provinces where there is inaction and lost opportunity.
Tout à l'heure, le message que je porte, c'est de dire, bien, les deux gouvernements doivent s'asseoir et trouver une issue. C'est absolument nécessaire. En fait, c'est vital pour la stratégie d'habitation pour Montréal, mais mes collègues de d'autres villes, je sais qu'à Gatineau aussi, ils ont des problèmes similaires. Le taux d'inoccupation qui est, je pense qu'on, M. Penneau-Jobin et moi, on partage pas mal le même taux d'inoccupation, malheureusement, qui est très, très bas. Alors, ça doit se faire par des pourparlers et de notre côté, en tout cas pour ma part, c'est de discuter autant avec la ministre de la Forêt ou avec M. Hussein lorsque l'opportunité se présente pour dire il faut trouver une solution. C'est absolument nécessaire. Ah, Vous comprendrez que je vais me tenir loin de blâmer qui que ce soit. Vous savez, de ma perspective à moi comme administration qui donne des sommes, par exemple, à des organismes ou des paramunicipales, il y a une reddition de compte de base qui vient avec. Mais loin de moi l'idée de questionner, je pense qu'il y a surtout un litige au niveau de cette reddition de compte-là. Moi, je pense qu'elle doit être légère et surtout facilitée, où on doit en arriver à un arrangement où tout le monde y prend son compte. Mais je suis convaincue que si tout le monde y met du sien, et honnêtement, les besoins au Québec sont tellement criants, je ne pense pas qu'on peut se permettre en ce moment de se relancer la balle. Je voudrais honnêtement, là, moi, je veux surtout que les deux ministres, ou enfin les deux pouvoirs gouvernementaux s'assoient et disent, OK, on règle ça, là, parce que ce sont des gens, des vraies personnes. J'ai 25 000 ménages sur ma liste d'attente pour du logement social. 25 000 ménages. Fait qu'eux, je pense qu'ils s'en fichent pas mal de la chicane, ou du moins du conflit, ou de l'impasse. Ils veulent une solution et c'est là-dessus qu'on doit miser. Oui. Ça mène parfois, dans le cas des aînés, à des évictions. Oui. Qu'est-ce que vous êtes prête à faire pour les protéger davantage? Bien, vous savez, tout ce qui touche les évictions, on est beaucoup avec la Régie du logement. Et ça, pas que je veux relancer la balle, mais c'est définitivement au niveau du gouvernement du Québec. Nous, ce sur quoi je parle toujours que l'habitation, c'est une boîte à outils. Il y a des outils que je contrôle, d'autres moins. Et dans les outils que je contrôle, c'est cette stratégie de 12 000 logements. Et dans ces 12 000 logements-là, il y a vraiment des logements qui sont pour les personnes aînées en tant que telles. D'ailleurs, j'ai une tour qui se construit en haut du métro Rosemont, enfin, où c'est du logement pour aînés. Mais au final, nous, à Montréal, on est prêt à construire. On a les organismes, tout le monde est prêt. Mais ce qui nous manque vraiment, on a l'expertise. Ce qu'il nous faut, c'est vraiment les sources de revenus. Mais je suis très en faveur d'un resserrement et d'une réflexion qui, selon moi, aurait dû avoir lieu avant, mais que ce soit par rapport aux rénovictions ou la façon où certaines personnes plus vulnérables se retrouvent à la rue, la Régie du logement doit se positionner. Et moi, j'aurais tendance à vous dire qu'une des premières réflexions, c'est est-ce qu'on ne devrait pas changer le sens du fardeau de la preuve? Est-ce qu'on ne devrait pas être plutôt, souvent dans le cas où ça devrait être le propriétaire qui doit prouver qu'il est bien que tout est fait de façon, dans les règles? Parce que présentement, ce qui est difficile aussi, c'est que des personnes plus vulnérables, dont des personnes aînées, se retrouvent à devoir se défendre, puis on sait ce que ça donne comme poids. Et si je peux me permettre sur le recyclage, par exemple. Oui. Qu'est-ce qui se passe après le mois de juin, une fois que l'aide de cette union arrive, une fois qu'on doit se tourner vers d'autres fournisseurs? Oui. Avez-vous des gens qui sont intéressés? Est-ce que les gens vont devoir arrêter d'utiliser le plastique à partir du mois de juin? Ah non, ils peuvent continuer, là. Ça, je vous rassure. Déjà, quand on a eu vent de ce qui se passait avec Thiru, nous, on a commencé à discuter avec des partenaires potentiels. Donc, certaines personnes ou certains groupes ou entreprises ont levé la main. Donc, on n'est pas, on va avoir des solutions, j'en suis certaine. Mais je me réjouis que le gouvernement du Québec ait entendu la demande des villes qui était, on ne peut pas assumer la facture de transition. Là, Montréal, on a déjà donné. Puis, il faut éviter l'enfouissement. Donc, très satisfaite que le gouvernement du Québec ait entendu. Merci. I think it's probably free.
Sure. So the Parliamentary Budget Officer has also repeatedly warned Canadians and parliamentarians and the government of the risks and tremendous costs of inaction on climate change. And so the question is fair, how are we going to pay for it? But the risk of inaction on this has a much greater cost. And local governments have understood this for a long time, and it's refreshing to have federal government working with us through mechanisms like the Green Municipal Fund and the $1 billion in the last budget. But some of the tangible things that we're looking for in this ask are, we think, tipping over and substantially benefiting from zero-emission vehicles is about a $2.7 billion ask over several budget cycles, so not in the short term. We recognize a lot of these will ramp up because we're talking about building capacity in the marketplace and capacity on our side. So, for example, on zero-emission vehicles, we need to build different kinds of garages, either with charging infrastructure or hydrogen fueling infrastructure or whatever the special technology is to support it. So we need an end-to-end solution. That's going to take some time to develop. So the good news is that in the short term, the ask is small. In the longer term, the ask and the benefits are larger. So the permanent transit funding is already costed and just carries forward the investments that are already in. And some of the discrete investments that we're asking about in housing are quite small in the grand scheme of things, but will have a job creation benefit as well that should offset in terms of employment and positive revenue gains. And then as with housing, most of the benefits come back to provinces. Social determinants of health, housing is one of the strongest. And so there are offsetting savings to other orders of government. And one of the things that we're struggling with as cities is we see all this interplay, particularly around housing, but also in other areas of jurisdiction, where one order of government makes good public policy, partners with the city and local agencies to implement it. The benefit shows up at the province, and we're still having trouble getting the provinces to invest in the supports for permanent supportive housing or match transit funding in a number of provinces, even though there's benefits, fiscal and public benefits to these investments happening. So we've got to find a way to draw provinces constructively into co-investment and realize co-benefit in a number of these areas, and that would also help square the fiscal circle. But certainly the cost of not making these investments, particularly around climate, is just simply unacceptable to future generations.
What have they explained to you as far as when it comes to the transit issue? In Minister McKenna's mandate letter, it says that they want to make sure it's permanent, obviously, work for zero-emission fleets, but also work with municipalities where there are exceptional circumstances. What have you been told is going to basically, what is that going to entail? What kind of funding and what kind of provisions are you looking for?
So very careful not to speak for the government, but we've had an ongoing conversation about the needs in the big cities, and the allocation-based formula gives us certainty for that. The challenge with the allocation-based formula is that if you're a smaller service in a rural community or in a smaller town that wouldn't be at our table, there's still a desire to move into the transit game, and the allocation formula based on today's ridership doesn't give you that opportunity. So dealing with some of the additional opportunities to help start or step change grow small transit systems, there needs to be a carve out for that. And FCM has heard from our own members of the need for that and brought that feedback to the government. So the permanent fund should also include those merit-based opportunities for smaller systems that really want to step up to the point where once it's done, they'd be eligible for longer-term benefit according to the allocation formula. So for those looking to join the transit middle class, there needs to be as it were, an on-ramp for that.
Just on your meeting this morning too with Minister Hussein and the head of the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, Evan Siddall, what was it that you were told as far as what is it that they're going to be looking at for some of their housing programs to make sure that those high-density rental units that you guys need, what are they going to do to fast-track some of that money that housing providers have said is really slowly trickling down into municipalities at the moment?
Well, I think we're still seeing, comparing notes from the mayor's challenges with implementation. There's still no bilateral in Quebec, and that's vexing the deployment of capital dollars. I think part of the incentive package includes financing for rental housing, which is being taken up in a number of communities and developers. We heard feedback from mayors who promoters and developers are very pleased with those financing tools. We continue to press on an area where the number of units is small, but the need is huge. And if we have goals around housing everyone by 2030, we need to think about a pathway to ending homelessness as part of that. And again, there's broad societal benefits to doing that. So we identified that there is still not enough resources coming in on the capital side for permanent supportive housing. We'd like to see more investment there. But one of the challenges remains that without provincial commitment to fund the operations, the back of house and 24/7 supports for that supportive housing, it's harder to make the case for the feds to bring more capital. So there's a bit of a chicken and egg with provinces on a number of these issues. But I think they heard our feedback loud and clear that nobody wants to be in the way of building more affordable housing for Canadians.
You know, you talk about wanting to work with provinces, but they are going to have a deadline until next year to identify some of those long-term projects. Otherwise, you guys get the money directly. So I'm curious, is there a part of you that almost doesn't want the provinces to identify those projects so that the money just lands in your laps?
Well, you know, if provinces do drag their feet, and some are, drag their feet, that is, I guess plural, there's several provinces doing it, then there is a consequence, and we really think it's important that there be a consequence to not playing ball in Confederation. However, the lost opportunity in the meantime is an economic loss and a loss in public benefit. It's to the extent that it's political, I think Canadians are tired of those games. And to the extent that, you know, whether it's a third, or 40%, 20%, or 50-50 between province and feds where it's outside of our jurisdiction, the loss of provincial participation, particularly in areas of their jurisdiction like housing, is a lost opportunity for Canadians. And so the provinces that are taking advantage of this are seeing job growth, are attracting people, are solving climate problems, and are winning in Confederation right now. So I've long said that the provinces that figure out best how to work with their cities and work with Ottawa to build strong communities are going to be the provinces that win in Confederation. So there ought to be a stronger incentive than the hammer of the dollars flowing straight to us. And I think all the mayors would rather see provinces come back into the fold and be constructive partners in building this country and solving challenges like climate change, delivering housing for more people, creating jobs, shortening people's commutes.
CMHC commits to working with provinces and our cities to accelerate the supply of higher density rental housing for vulnerable Canadians. Did you hear anything concrete? Are they actually going to speed up what's in the National Housing Strategy, or is he just saying we're doing the same as already planned?
Well, I think the rental housing construction incentives were something that the mayors have pushed for and FCM has pushed for a long time, and I think further deployment of those is going to grow that rental stock. We did have a conversation about the broader public benefits of higher density, affordable housing close to transit. So transit and housing are not issues in isolation. They're two things that go together that build stronger cities that, by the way, are more affordable, healthier, and have lower emissions profiles. So all of this intersects, and we had a good conversation about that. He did raise some suggestions about moves cities and or provinces could make to stipulate affordable housing be included around transit centers. There is sometimes a challenge of gentrification close to mass transit infrastructure, and so I think it was positive to hear the CEO of CMHC talk about making sure that there are inclusive and mixed income communities, including rental housing close to those transit stations that we're all investing together to build. So in terms of concrete measures, I think those are still to be developed, but I think that's very much in the urban planning intention, I think, of most of our cities to build economically inclusive, denser, healthier, low-carbon neighborhoods close to great transit.
He's saying that like the Trump work was committed to this. You're saying that he gave suggestions on how to structure it. So should we not actually walk away with a commitment from the CMHC to speed up the funding?
I think feedback from FCM and from the housing sector that we want to see funds flow faster was heard loud and clear. And so there was a commitment across all of their programs to continue to take that feedback, to remove barriers. And likewise, we committed to see what we can do about permitting and about making available surplus municipal land. So I think we're all committed to implement the National Housing Strategy as quickly as possible. And they're very open to the critiques that have been out there about the flow of funds. But it's a $40 billion program that's being stood up. Realistically, it is going to take some time to get up to full speed. But they did offer that commitment to work with us, and from Minister Hussein as well, who's very passionate about this file.
On the new NAFTA, for example, on the new NAFTA, the Prime Minister seemed to have a message that he was trying to launch to MPs from the Bloc or from the Conservative Party that seems to be trying to play political games on this. So I'd like to hear from you, why is it important for your municipalities, all three of you, that NAFTA is ratified quickly, and what message do you want to send to those parties that seem to be playing political games with the ratification?
So the Canadian Parliament absolutely cannot drag its heels in any way, shape, or form on the ratification of NAFTA. Not only has the federal government labored long and hard, but mayors from across this country and FCM have worked very hard. Many of us have taken missions to the United States, worked with governors and mayors and chambers of commerce leaders, and gone with our own business community to talk about the importance of NAFTA. So we helped haul this forward. And so we have a stake in it because in all communities, rural and urban, we are a trading nation and we are an exporting nation, and we depend on free trade. And we cannot be seen to be a laggard. We cannot fall into a situation where this becomes a political hot potato in the United States going into their presidential election. And so any partisan games around the rapid ratification of NAFTA would be unacceptable to our business communities, to our exporters, and to the mayors who've been unequivocal about the importance of free trade to the economies of all of our cities and this country.
Yeah, oui, certainement. Tous les maires des grandes villes appuient NAFTA parce que c'est bon pour les économies de toutes les villes. Spécifiquement, parler avec le maire de Windsor, il était ici aujourd'hui parce que NAFTA est important pour le secteur des autos. Alors, le premier ministre et Mme Freeland a dit, si tu parles avec des députés de conservateurs ou Bloc ou NPD, express our desire that the amendment or the agreement is passed quickly, because the longer we're the lone person out, the more challenging it's going to be if the president decides to put a tariff on something because we don't have a free trade agreement in place. So, je pense que c'est vraiment dans les intérêts de tous les Canadiens et les municipalités de parler avec les députés de l'opposition pour dire, s'il vous plaît, arrête avec des politiques. Ça, c'est plus important pour l'économie de notre pays.
Et en fait, juste rapide, et en fait, M. Iveson l'a bien dit, mais les maires et mairesses, on a participé d'une certaine façon aux négociations. On a vraiment été sur la ligne de front également avec nos chambres de commerce, écrire, à faire des voyages. Alors, on fait partie de celles et ceux qui disent justement, le développement économique, là, ça se passe chez nous, sur notre territoire, dans nos quartiers industriels, on veut des jobs pour notre monde. Alors, c'est pas le temps de faire de la politique à ce moment-ci. Il faut qu'on aille de l'avant pour s'assurer que nos citoyens et citoyennes, partout à travers le pays, sont capables d'aller de l'avant avec les jobs actuels, mais des jobs futurs également.
Last question, dernière question.
You have three wide-ranging asks here. Was there anything in that meeting today that you had assurance that will come through in the budget in April?
I think the commitment about permanent transit is in the minister's mandate letter, was in the platform. I think they intend to follow through on that. I mean, we really want to nail that down in budget, again, because it helps us turn back to a conversation with our provinces. So I think we can count on the federal government to deliver on permanent transit funding. I think there's a lot of openness and interest in what we can do around zero-emission vehicles to help the government meet the challenging emission reduction targets that we've asked for. And I think there's broad recognition that the needs far outstrip the resources on disaster mitigation and dealing with extreme weather. But that turns us back to the question of urgency about reducing emissions on the preventative side. But I think, this government's commitment around transit has been unimpeachable, and we'll just look to confirm that and see where we can go further on zero emissions and opportunities for smaller transit systems to start to scale up as well.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.